What would you sign your soul away for? Klondike bar? Kiddie's pool on a hot summer day? Freddo's to be 10p again. Hello adventurers, I am the Welsh DM, the one Welshman whose accent was bargained away in a Crossroads deal. Devils are some of the oldest villains in all of storytelling, ancient evils from the planes below that seek to corrupt mortals, desecrate holy sites, and rebel against divinity. Honestly though, when it comes to TTRPGs like D&D, it can be quite difficult for us to use them effectively in our games. They can often come off as evil for the sake of evil, rather than having any sort of particular identity or nuance to them. So, as we once more dust off the Bestiary on this channel, I want to take this opportunity to dive into devils. What stories are they suited for? How can we make them good villains at the heart of our campaigns? And what can we do to make sure that final confrontation is memorable and exciting? So, before any more talking gets us in trouble with the denizens of the lower planes, let's talk about devils. So, you know you want to use devils in your next campaign. The next most important question to ask yourself is, what are the kinds of stories that we can tell with them? What are the themes and tropes that are associated with devil kind? In most Western media, devils are intertwined heavily with Christian mythology. The concept of a hell below us where devils reside and rule, punishing the wicked for all eternity. Other cultures, of course, will have their own myths, interpretations, and legends of devil kind, but I am not so familiar with them, and to be honest, they aren't my stories to tell. Regardless, one of the consistent things we see in media when it comes to devils is the concept of a devil and a mortal making a deal. A mortal gains great power or ability by signing away their soul and consigning themselves to eternal damnation. And then subsequently, we get the tales of the human tricking the devil, finding a loophole out of their contract and escaping scot-free. The early seasons of Supernatural use this narrative quite a lot, with both of the brothers making deals with crossroad demons, and then at the end of things, a hellhound comes to take them to hell at the end of it. With devils in our game, we can try and tempt our players into unfortunate deals that they may come to regret down the line, or if they're not biting, use the NPCs they are friends with to bring those kind of narrative threads into our story. If we're going to use D&D's lore for devils, where they are the canonically lawful evil creatures in the multiverse, we have to question, what does this mean for devils' motives? Yes, they are seeking to undermine what is good in the world, but they're doing it in a strict, orderly fashion. Does this mean subjugating the people of the material plane against their will and ruling over them? Or does it mean devils are bound by archaic, esoteric laws, dictating the ways they can and cannot act with mortal kind? How do devils try to get around these laws to really achieve their ambitions? Perhaps though, my favourite concept when it comes to devils is the fall from grace concept, dating all the way back to the very first devil in Lucifer. We as GMs will probably use cultists a lot, people getting sucked into that dark, insidious world, but what if we use this concept to step it up a notch? Instead of just a commoner getting dragged into a cult, what if a holy man does? Devils would relish corrupting holy individuals, slowly tempting them into insidious acts until it is too late and they have fully turned to evil. It's an interesting twist on a classic D&D storyline. And the last point I want to raise on our big whiteboard of red string and marker pen is the concept of the 7 sins. If you're interested in the corruption theme, then using the sins of wrath, envy, or pride, or any of the others can provide a useful foundation for you when it comes to trying to tempt your players. You can tell all manner of falls into hell based on a different sin at the center of your narrative. And to devils, any fall, regardless of sin, is delicious all the same. As with every entry into the Bestiary, I like to give you some ideas for potential adventures that center on devils to use at your tables. Firstly, let's start with a one-shot idea, probably quite perfect for Halloween. Escape Perdition. This takes the classic supernatural crossroads deal concept and ports it over to D&D. One of the party, or perhaps a beloved NPC of theirs, made a deal with the devil 7 years ago, and tonight that deal is due. Exactly what the deal was doesn't matter, but what does matter is if you don't find a way out of it, your friend is going to be dragged to hell. The party must prepare the house for the pack of hellhounds that will eventually descend. They have only a couple of hours to prepare, plan, and trap their stronghold before the baleful howls begin to echo at dusk. Can you save your friend and make it to dawn? Alternatively, you could turn this into a lingering B-plot in your longer form campaign, where the pack of hellhounds keep coming back every time you defeat them, until you find a more permanent solution to your contract. The next idea I have takes from the corruption theme with the devout have fallen. A priest in one of your character's hometowns has been tempted into infernal deals, believing the whispering of the devils is actually the word of their god in prayer. Perhaps they've been convinced that by summoning devils to the material plane from the hells, they are actually saving souls that would otherwise be in eternal torment, giving them a chance for redemption. Go watch Castlevania for a similar kind of concept in action. The party must save the priest from the predations of the devils and stop the town from falling completely into the grips of devils. This adventure is about dealing with a much more passive cult in a town. It's not even really an active cult, it is just the direction of which the central worship of the town has headed. Can the party uncover the secrets, uncover the truth, and use it to save everyone's souls? The last and perhaps biggest adventure idea I have for you is the 7 Sins Summoned. This is a long, multi-level campaign that is focused on the devil's attempts to enact a centuries-long plan to free Asmodeus from the bottom of the pit and allow him once more to take reign upon the material plane. For this to happen, the 7 virtuous seals that keep him bound must be broken, and they can only be broken by an embodiment of sin itself. What these embodiments of sin look like are up to you. Perhaps devils focus on corrupting an individual mortal until they become an avatar of corruption themselves, or is it a devil to be summoned up from the lower planes requiring a specific ritual and act each time? Either way, the more seals that the party manage to save and keep unbroken, the easier it will be to defeat Asmodeus in the final battle and prevent the ritual from being completed. These are just 3 adventures that I came up with based on the themes and tones we mentioned earlier, but there are obviously a lot more ideas out there for you to use at your tables. If you have any particular ideas, feel free to drop them in the comments below for other people to use as well. Now, with our adventure coming together, we know we're going to be using devils a lot, so it's going to behoove us to become quite comfortable with the stat block and decide whether it's fit for our purposes. In D&D, over the many decades, we've become quite fortunate with a wide array of devils being available to us in the monster manual. This diversity is great for our campaigns because it allows us the opportunity to use devils at basically any level the party are at for a variety of different uses. However, it does expose one issue. Devils in D&D don't feel like a cohesive entity. They feel pretty distinct from each other without a unifying feature of any kind. I spoke in a previous video on monster design that by having synergistic repeated features between different monsters of the same type allows them to work together in interesting ways. And devils just don't have that at the minute. I would consider adding something around the concept of luring people into deals and manipulating them in some way. Take the concept of devil's bargains that are a fairly common TTRPG rule set concept and port it into the game where the devil itself can make a devil's bargain with a character. MCDM did something quite similar with this in Flea Mortals and their versions of devils for 5th edition, so go check that out if you can. Alternatively, you could give the devils a limited use resource that allows them to call in the deals that they've made with other creatures to help them out in this moment. Something like minor buffs to damage, a little bit of extra healing that they sap from one of their patrons, something like that just allows them to change up the combat or gain a little advantage when they absolutely need it. Instead though, you may want to explore that link between devils and the 7 sins. There are, as if by chance, 7 monsters in the monster manual that come under the category of something devil, whether that is an ice devil, a chain devil, or a barbed devil. You could, for your purposes, tie each of those devils to a particular sin and give them a power off the back of it. Maybe Wrath gives barbed devils reckless attack. Maybe Sloth slows down Ice Devils a little bit but gives them more damage resistance as they're slow to react to the pain. Or Envy allows Horned Devils to copy the actions and spells of the player characters and hurl it back at them. This way you keep the diversity that we've all come to be accustomed with Devils in 5th edition, but you get a little bit more of a unifying feature that brings them all together and makes them more of a collective entity. And before we move on, a little thing about D&D's Devils that does bug me is there's no mechanical or even suggested way to handle devil bargains in your campaign. It's a quintessential thing about devils if you think about them in most Western media, and yet D&D doesn't really give you the opportunity to do that. Compare that to Celestials that come fully equipped with healing powers and restorative powers that can help out the characters in times of needs. Devils don't have anything that can provide a buff to a character for some sort of price now or down the road. I don't know, something like a character getting +1 to all damage rolls for 1 month, but at the end of that month they give up one of their skill proficiencies as the devil claims it. That's a deal that might be tempting to a barbarian or a fighter that knows the big final climactic arc is coming up and maybe can sacrifice that proficiency for the epilogue of the campaign. This probably isn't fit for a monster manual, so I get why it's not there, but I would love to see a Fizzband's Treasury of Dragons, Bigby's Glory of the Giants style book on Fiends that opens up this concept for GMs and players in D&D. Maybe I should write that book. Got a lot of opinions on devils and demons. Let me know if you'd be interested in a book like that, and maybe I'll see about doing something on DM's Guild. We have now reached the climax of our adventure. The party has gone through the adventure, made their foolish bargains, the cultists have started the grand ritual. It's time for the final showdown. When prepping for your final encounter, the greatest piece of advice I can think of is the one cool thing concept, where you put one thing into an encounter that makes it memorable and exciting, and stops it becoming overloaded with additional rules and mechanics. The exact nature of it will vary based on your adventure and your final encounter, but here's a couple of ideas pertaining to devils and the rituals around them that might be useful for your adventure. The most obvious example of dealing with devil kind in any form is a grand ritual where a bunch of cultists are trying to open a portal to hell and summon a bunch of devils. If you're going to make this your final encounter, you want to make sure it's an actionable part of the encounter and not something that will just fade into the background. Make the ticking clock apparent to your players and make it something they can interact with, interrupt, and slow down. You could even add it into the initiative order so people know when it's acting and to make sure you as the GM don't forget to make stuff happen. I know I've done it all the time where I've got things that I really want to happen in an encounter, but because I'm following the initiative, I forget all about them. Putting in that sort of ticking clock into your adventure adds to the drama and forces your players into a sense of urgency to act. Plus, it gives them something to do that isn't just, walk up to the nearest cultist and hit them over the head with a hammer. You can also use this ritual to shift the balance and nature of the encounter on the fly when you realise you need it. Do you feel like the encounter needs more enemies because the players are churning through the low-level cultists? Well, maybe have some imps or low-level devils sneak through the cracks in the ritual and add to the encounter. Maybe you want the players to be hindered a little bit more with their movement around the grand ritual chamber, and so hellfire begins leaking out of the portal, creating channels of fire that they have to leap through or work around. Or simply maybe the encounter ends quicker than you thought, so you decide you want to add a second stage. As the rift collapses, the energy has to go somewhere and it gets funneled into the head cultist, who suddenly begins to swell and bulge as they are filled with infernal power and become a horrifying monstrosity that the party have to fight. Rituals of power provide you plenty of opportunity to alter the encounter even after initiative is rolled. Speaking of which, something to have in your back pocket is those deals that your devil has made. Especially useful if at the heart of your final encounter is the devil itself rather than just the cultists trying to summon him. If this devil has made deals with the party, then perhaps they can use those deals to turn the party against each other. Or maybe it's the NPCs that the parties know and trust have made deals with the devil, and now is the time that those NPCs are forced to betray the party. How do they deal with the emotional trauma in the middle of a high-intensity action fight? And the last thing I want to mention is consider the devil's weaknesses outside of being hit with magical weapons. Classically, creatures like devils are much weaker when someone knows and uses their true name. Think like Constantine from DC weaponizing this to harm creatures. Or alternatively, shows like Supernatural and Buffy where the characters dive into the history of the creature they're trying to hunt to find what actually harms them. If you concede this specific weakness somewhere in your adventure for the players to investigate and uncover, when they learn it and then use it in the final encounter, it's going to feel really satisfying for your players at the table. I do have more to discuss on this topic, but I think it's better suited to a future Bestiary video discussing the other kind of fiends. In summary, I do think it's quite difficult to use devils effectively in TTRPGs. It's all too easy for them just to become a vague sense of an evil creature looking to do evil things in your story. But I do also believe there is more depth to them that we can exploit as storytellers. Tell stories of tragic fall from grace, or clever mortals verbally getting themselves out of deals they made with devils, or simply just what it means to be evil. And to be honest, despite what I said earlier, I think devils are best suited to be non-combat antagonists. Shadowy creatures in the background that influence other people into committing evil acts, sowing discord and disharmony amongst the populace. Regardless, if you've used devils in a TTRPG campaign, let me know in the comments below how it went for you, what kind of stories did you tell, and how did that final climactic encounter go? Next up in this series, I think I'm going to do the fiendish counterparts of devil kind on the other side of the Blood War, the demons from the abyss. But if there's a different kind of monster you would like to see covered in the Bestiary, also let me know in the comments below and I'll add it to the queue. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, please do give it a like. It's really important I get a number of likes, otherwise the infernal algorithm I signed a contract with is going to take my soul. And if you enjoy this kind of content, why not go check out the full playlist of the Bestiary to check out monsters like vampires and mind flayers, and also subscribe to the channel to make sure you never miss when a new entry goes out. Anyway, I do believe that's it. So, until we do this again, you keep an eye out for dragons, I'm gonna go make a new bargain with some devils to get my accent back, and remember to keep telling stories. The 7 sins summoned. Try saying that 7 times fast. 7 sins summoned. 7 sins summoned. 7 sins summoned. 7 sins summoned.